Nothing strengthens faith more than witnessing biblical prophecies unfold in reality. Recently, news broke that a ceremony for the Third Temple has just taken place, discussed even by Joe Rogan on his podcast. This profound event impacts Christians, Jews, and others, bringing us closer to events linked to the second coming of Christ. With this development, pressing questions arise. What does this mean for Christians? How might it affect peace in the region? Join us as we look into Joe Rogan's announcement that the ceremony for the Third Temple has just happened. The ceremony for the Third Temple. The team of architects working on plans for the Third Temple has honored Ezekiel's prophecy, guided by insights from scholars like Rashi, Vilna Gaon, Malbim, and Ramchal, who made key verses of the book of Ezekiel clear and accessible. Now, a precise model of the Third Temple is ready, created at a scale of 1/50. This model will be on display at a new visitor center in Jerusalem, set to open in 2025. The planned temple, a 150-meter square structure with varying heights, will be visible across Jerusalem once construction starts after approval from the municipality. So, where do things stand now? Why is rebuilding this temple even necessary? The most intriguing details are still to come. The Jerusalem municipality is already laying out future plans to welcome visitors from around the world, including roadmaps, electrification, trams, and all necessary infrastructure. For those who view Scripture as a literal fulfillment of God's promises to the Jewish people and the land of Israel, rebuilding the temple is essential. In the vision of the new covenant for Israel, the Bible describes a time when a righteous descendant of David will rule in Jerusalem, bringing justice and righteousness to the earth. In that age, Jerusalem will be a place of safety, the temple will stand once more, and the Levitical priests will perform their sacred duties. This passage portrays the Messianic age when Israel is fully restored to its land, with the temple complete and a descendant of David on the throne. If this vision is truly meant for the future, what signs point to the preparation for a third temple in Israel today? Since 1987, when the temple movement began preparing for the Third Temple, efforts to make this vision a reality in the 21st century have been gradually moving forward. While modern Israel and many Jewish people worldwide remain secular, Orthodox Jews believe these individuals won't have a role in rebuilding the temple, as this work is seen as deeply spiritual. It is Orthodox Jews who have reestablished the Sanhedrin, the religious council responsible for overseeing legal matters related to the temple, and who are determined to see it properly rebuilt. For Orthodox Jews, rebuilding the temple is essential for the redemption of the world, which they believe depends on its restoration. Gershon Salomon, director of the Temple Mount Faithful, leads an organization focused on preparing Israeli society to embrace and promote the rebuilding of the temple. Their efforts have included demonstrations at the Temple Mount, constructing a cornerstone for the temple, and creating various temple-related items. Salomon views the rebuilding of the Third Temple as crucial for completing the redemption of the Jewish people and believes it should be central to Israeli life. However, many religious Jews disagree with this viewpoint, adopting a diaspora mentality that emphasizes a spiritualized perspective, setting aside hope in a literal fulfillment of the prophecies for a future temple. For these Jews, the current political situation on the Temple Mount, with Muslims controlling the site, is acceptable. Leaders of the temple movement argue that without the temple, Jewish life isn't at the spiritual level God intended due to the absence of the divine presence from the world. Rabbi Chaim Richman, director of the Temple Institute, emphasizes the connection between achieving a new level of spiritual growth and the rebuilding of the temple. His institute has already produced all the ritual vessels needed for the temple's operation and is actively training priests for this future work. For Orthodox Jews dedicated to restoring the temple, they believe that both the world's issues and those faced by the Jewish people can only be resolved through its rebuilding. So are we any closer to the reconstruction of the temple today? The world remains strongly opposed to Israel's claims over Jerusalem, let alone the highly contested Temple Mount. In fact, Israeli law currently bans Jewish prayer at the site, and those who visit often face opposition from Muslims, such as the women in black, who vigilantly monitor Jewish activity there. Additionally, Islamic authorities deny a Jewish temple ever existed at this site. Yet recent events have helped advance the temple movement's vision, bringing the goal of rebuilding the temple within reach. To counter the claim that a Jewish temple never stood here, findings by archaeologists decades ago revealed that the site of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which Muslims associate with Abraham, was previously a place of Jewish ritual preparation. Evidence for this came from British archaeologist Robert Hamilton's report, documenting excavations of the mosque's foundation after an earthquake in 1927. Beneath the mosque's floor, he found remains of a Jewish mikveh, a ritual pool used for purification, dating to the Second Temple era, when Jews immersed here before entering the temple grounds. These findings, kept hidden in British archives to avoid upsetting Muslim officials, now stand as evidence that the ancient temple once occupied the modern Temple Mount and served as a site of Jewish worship. The Sanhedrin's preparations for the Third Temple. The Sanhedrin has been taking important steps to prepare for the future temple service. One of their projects is planting a biblical temple forest, which will provide the agricultural resources needed for the Third Temple. Rabbi Hillel Weiss, a spokesman for the Sanhedrin, explained that the temple served as a vital link between the land of Israel and the divine. While sacrifices are often thought of as involving animals and blood, the majority of them were made from plants grown around the country. Rabbi Richman, also a member of the Sanhedrin, is leading an effort to bring the sacred red heifer back to Israel. According to the Book of Numbers, the ashes of the red heifer, mixed with water, are essential for purifying Jews so they can serve in the temple. Over a span of about 1,000 years during the First and Second Temples, only 9 red heifers were used in the purification ritual. Jewish tradition holds that the 10th will be used by the Messiah. Richman and other rabbis at the Temple Institute are working closely with an Israeli cattleman, an expert in animal husbandry, to make this possible. The cattleman is using advanced methods, such as implanting frozen Red Angus embryos from North America into Israeli domestic cattle. It's important to note that a red heifer cannot be brought to Israel from abroad, as it must be born in the land of Israel and cannot have ever worn a yoke. This project represents years of research at the Temple Institute, combining ancient religious teachings with modern scientific techniques. The Sanhedrin and the Temple movement have been holding reenactments of temple ceremonies to train those from the priestly class, known as Kohanim. This training includes special schooling on the responsibilities of the priests, the use of ritual vessels created for the Third Temple, and practice with a newly built altar for burnt offerings. This altar is designed to be easily disassembled and reassembled in its permanent location on Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount, where the altar must be built according to Jewish law. When the time comes, it will be moved to its proper place, allowing sacrificial services to begin without delay. Another significant rediscovery by the Temple Institute is the revival of the ancient process of producing biblical crimson dye. This dye was used in the garments of the high priest, the parashe, the curtain separating the Holy of Holies from the holy place, and mixed with the ashes of the red heifer. Professor Zohar Amar from Bar-Ilan University found that the eggs of the Tolat Shani, crimson worm, still found in Israel today can produce this ancient crimson dye. While the temple movement is working hard to prepare for the rebuilding of the temple, it's widely understood that political action will be necessary to change the current situation, where Muslims control the Temple Mount, in order to allow Jewish access. This may already be in progress. Israel's Supreme Court has made it clear that the issue of the Temple Mount is not a simple legal matter, but a highly sensitive political issue. The court stated that it is not for them to decide, but for the political leaders to give meaning to the historical claim that the Temple Mount is ours. This means the solution must come from political, not legal action. Those familiar with the prophecy in the book of Daniel know that a future political leader, often identified as the Antichrist, will make a deceptive covenant with the Jewish leaders, eventually leading to the rebuilding of the Third Temple. How could this come to pass? One possible scenario comes from a book about the politics surrounding the Temple Mount. The idea is that international involvement may be required, with the United Nations, UNESCO, and regional powers like the Arab League, NATO, or even countries like the US, the EU, and Russia acting as mediators. Any legal or political solution would likely involve interfaith cooperation, with religious leaders from various faiths helping to mediate. Those who study biblical prophecy recognize that the Antichrist will be accompanied by both political and religious leaders, making this kind of international proposal a potential reality. The arrival of the red heifers and the path to the third temple. In 2022, 5 red heifers arrived in Israel, causing a lot of excitement among some Jews and Gentiles, who believe these animals are crucial for the construction of the third Jewish temple. The heifers are currently kept in a secure, undisclosed location, with plans to move them soon to a visitor center in Shiloh, where the tabernacle of the Lord once stood for nearly 400 years. According to the book of Numbers, the ashes of a red heifer are used to purify priests before they can serve in the temple. So what are the specific requirements for these heifers? And do they meet biblical standards and prophecies? The story behind them is fascinating. The Bible says that the red heifer must be without blemish, no defects,
perfectly red cow with no white hairs or dark hairs,
and never have worn a yoke. These heifers are currently between 1.5 and 2 years old. To be used in the ceremony, they need to be at least 3 years old and free from any imperfections, including even one white or black hair. The ceremony must take place on the Mount of Olives, with a clear view of the Temple Mount. The land directly east of the Temple Mount, purchased 12 years ago, fits these requirements. Rabbi Yitzhak Mamo, who owns this land, is part of a group focused on preserving Israel's history and educating future generations. He explained that the location is perfect because it allows the priest to directly face the Holy of Holies during the ceremony. Mamo hopes that within the next year and a half, this land will host the red heifer ceremony, marking a crucial step toward rebuilding the temple. For this ceremony, only priests who have remained pure and untouched by death are allowed to participate. Israeli journalist Omri Manav has been actively posting about the red heifers and their significance. Recently, he shared an investigation based on a study by Professor Zohar Amar from Bar-Ilan University. The study explored how many people could be ritually purified by the ashes of one red heifer, concluding that one heifer's ashes could purify up to 660 billion people. Maniv also pointed out that the Israeli government has quietly allocated funds for the purification rituals, which could be linked to preparations for the third temple. This has been done discreetly to avoid stirring tensions internally and with the Arab population. Meanwhile, 2 weeks ago, a group of Jews descended from the priestly families practiced the purification ceremony at ancient Shiloh, a site affiliated with the Temple Institute. The event included explanations of priestly duties, sacrifices, and a temple banquet, featuring foods from the biblical and Second Temple periods. The Temple Institute has prepared 9 pure priests for the upcoming ceremony. These priests were born at home, not in hospitals, to maintain their purity. They avoid cemeteries and any situations that could defile them. Everything is ready: the priests, the red heifer, the land. Now it's just a matter of waiting for another year and a half. Byron Stinson from Boni Israel, who helped find the red heifers in the United States, believes the ceremony could take place around Passover or Shavuot in 2024, as the heifers will be old enough by then. Stinson sees this ceremony as the first in 2,000 years and believes the return of the Jewish people to the Promised Land began the process of rebuilding the temple. In 1948, Israel was reborn as a nation, and since then, prophecies about Jerusalem and the temple have been coming true. Stinson doesn't know exactly how or when the temple will be rebuilt, but he's amazed by the fulfillment of these prophecies. Stinson emphasizes that the temple isn't just for Jews, but for all nations, as Solomon described it. Author Joel Rosenberg, who wrote about the Third Temple in his novel, The Copper Scroll, points out that Jews are divided on whether the Messiah will build the temple or if the temple will be built first, signaling the Messiah's arrival. Many Israelis, however, don't focus on the issue and worry about the challenges that come with discussions of rebuilding the temple. Rosenberg also observes different perspectives within the Christian community.
Astrology people, we're not, crystal ball people, we're not.
While many Christians don't focus on the idea of the third temple, those who do believe it must be built before Jesus returns. This doesn't necessarily mean before the rapture, but certainly before the second coming. These Christians believe the Antichrist will take control of the third temple during the tribulation and try to rule the world from there. The question of whether this will happen in our lifetime is intriguing. While the exact timing is uncertain, preparations are being made, and some Jews are actively preparing for this moment. Stinson shared that they plan to invite everyone to witness the red heifer ceremony, which could take place during Passover in 2024. Everything is in place now if the red heifers stay pure, the priest is ready, and all the pieces are set. Rabbi Mamo referenced the writings of Maimonides, who listed 9 red heifers from Moses to the Second Temple.
Only 9 heifers have been sacrificed since Moses.
Maimonides also noted that the 10th heifer will signal the arrival of the Messiah. Rabbi Mamo believes this 10th heifer will be the one that ushers in the Messiah, and many feel privileged to be part of this momentous event. What are your thoughts on the fulfillment of these biblical prophecies? Do you think the rapture is closer than we realize? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to check out the next video on your screen. You will enjoy it.